As an artist on YouTube, there's definitely some videos that I feel like may be a little more controversial than others. Usually it's my opinions on different products and artists, but this is one that can seriously land me into a lot of trouble. Full disclosure, I am a Blick employee. Currently, I'm an associate manager at the time of recording, and I'm going to be reviewing Blick's Premier Ink Black Cat. Everything in this is not sponsored and is my honest to God opinion, as I want to see the quality that Blick had in their inks. What's up guys, I'm J-Rod of battlebrawlerproductions. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We craft amazing comic book style illustrations through a variety of different mediums. Let's go ahead and get the elephant out of the room. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, this can be a little bit controversial and even be considered a conflict of interest, as I'm going to be doing an honest to God review of Blick's Premier India Ink Black Cat. The reason this is a bit controversial is because, as I mentioned, I am currently an associate manager for Blick Art Materials. However, with that said, this is not sponsored. I was not asked to make this by anyone in the company or any members of staff, and I'm making this of my own accord. I did not get this for free. In fact, I paid full price and refused to actually get my employee discount on it, as I wanted to represent this ink as earnest as possible. Also making this video to see how good this ink is and compared to other inks out there. I'm going to treat it the same as I've treated every ink that I've reviewed in the past. I want to know if this ink is a high quality ink that I can in all honesty recommend to those looking for ink when they shop at my store, because one, I've always made sure that my opinion is honest. While my opinions do change over time as my knowledge of art products have grown. For example, in the past I've said that Higgins was very weak, it was a very poor ink, but now understand its benefits and have decided to rate it higher at revisits. This is a situation where I really want to see how good this ink can be and make my opinions known for others. I also want to say another reason I decided to do this is because I'm genuinely impressed by the quality of Blick's art material. Now again, this is not sponsored, but my honest opinion is that most, 99% of the products that they make are very high quality. I got the chance to watch many of the videos where they showed the factory that they make the pigments. I've tested many of the products at work, both for myself and for customers and other members of staff, and we have all been impressed by the genuine quality of their stuff. Not everything they make is perfect, and they do have a few products that I do think are not up to standard compared to others, but for the most part, I am extremely impressed with their quality. I've gone on record stating that their gouache is really high quality and almost comparable to Winsor Newton. Their watercolor blocks are on the same par as Arches, and the Blick Premier mechanical pencil is my honest to God favorite mechanical pencil. I love this thing. And all of this has been stated before I got the job working for Blick and while I was still working for Dollar Tree. I wanted to take a look at this product and see if it was really good, and I wanted to get all those controversies out of the way. But with all that said, what is Black Cat? It is Blick's very own waterproof India ink. It is 125 fluid ounces for $4.99 in store and $3.25 online. And one thing I really like is that it's a very nice solid glass bottle with a plastic top. Though there is no eyedropper, I do appreciate it having a larger surface so you don't avoid over dipping. I've stated in the past that I prefer inks that don't have an eyedropper, though that opinion has changed as I really like eyedroppers. They come in handy with different techniques, and I also use shot glasses to put my ink into to avoid over dipping. The really open wide top will prevent the over dipping, so I appreciate them doing that. And then I also really appreciate them having this little thing right here. For use in technical pens and dip pens, do not use in fountain pens. Wash units with warm water or pen cleaner. Will not wash out of clothes. After drying, light fast, fade proof, and keep it from freezing. So this is going to have a high light fastness. It's going to be waterproof. It will not be alcohol marker proof. That is a trait of all India inks, just something I want to highlight. And overall, I really like the presentation of this. In fact, this kind of makes me think of Deleter's ink, especially with the little black cat motif and the shape of the inkwell, but I'm really excited to give this a try, so let's go ahead and break out our sketchbook. Very nice. It's a solid black ink. When you really start to get that line variety towards the end, it does turn gray, but it really feels nice. I have to say, I really like the solid black nature of it. It's very smooth. One of the smoothest inks, just from this test feel. I really like that feel. Like, I'm able to put lines down quick, and they're really solid. No bleeding, no edging. This is mixed media paper. Bristol's preferred, but ink still performs very well. Like, look at this. I really like this. In all honesty, like, no joke, this kind of reminds me a lot of Winsor Newton's ink, which is very interesting. So I'm curious as to how it's going to feel with a brush and with our quill nib. And yes, very nice. Again, solid, very smooth, feels nice, has a great flow to it. Ink itself is solid black, has a slight gloss to it. Very common for India inks. Most of them will have that satin to glossy finish. Of course, it's still wet, so when it dries, we'll test to see if it's waterproof. Of course, we already know it is not alcohol marker proof. That's standard for India inks, so I will not hold that against it here. Now, I want to see how it's going to feel with a brush, because while my dip pen and my quill nib are my main tools, because I use them so much, especially for my illustrations, the brush is as equally important, and I want to see what we're going to get. And that, again, feels really nice. It's solid black. I love the coverage. This is really good. You know, we always look at Artist Loft and other art company brands as like, oh, you know, that's just a filler. But the thing about Blick, I'm genuinely impressed by the quality of almost all of their products. It's solid. It goes where I want it to go. I have a lot of control over it. I am able to put it down and just mess with it and see what I can do. Here, where I thinned it out, it's starting to dry and it still holds a really good black. I really like the darkness of this ink. Now we're gonna let it dry and see how waterproof it is. One nice thing about owning a heat gun, it helps to speed up the dry time. Yeah, I'm putting a lot of water down and it is good. No bleeding, no smearing, no reactivation. I like this. This is what I like to see in my ink. Again, this is India ink. It is not alcohol marker proof. In fact, let's go ahead and grab a marker and test that real quick. Yep, you can see right there, it is bleeding and smearing from the alcohol being applied. Not as much as other inks I have looked at the past, but you can see in there we do have some really bad bleeding. Now this is normal with India ink. That's part of the course of the medium. I mean, you wouldn't complain that watercolor is too transparent. That's the whole point of watercolor. So just something I want to highlight. I know some people always ask about that. Really, the only ink that is alcohol marker proof are certain pigment inks and Sumi ink. So to recap what we learned from our test, the black is really good. It's very solid. In terms of feel, it's very smooth and reminds me a lot of the Winsor Newton India ink. It's also waterproof while being more alcohol marker proof than other inks. Again, we did get some smearing and bleeding, but far less extreme than other inks we've taken a look at. And it's going to be more of a matte finish. Like, I really like this finish. And again, it didn't bleed that much with alcohol markers, so you could use minimal markers with this ink. I'm actually really impressed by that. So overall, this was a successful test and we learned a lot. So now we have to take everything that we learned from here and take that and use it in an illustration. And for today's illustration, I have something really special planned, as I'm not going to be just illustrating Wrath. I'm going to be illustrating Wrath, Lust, and Pride all fighting. I think it's going to be really fun. I think it's going to be a really cool epic piece for this ink, and we're going to go in and do some watercolor on it to really make it pop and add just that little extra flair to it. So let's go ahead and roll that super time lapse. Inking this piece was super fun and very relaxing. I've mentioned this countless times on the channel, but it bears repeating. Ink is my absolute favorite medium. I love how versatile it is. I love everything you can do with it. I love textures. I love everything about inking. Not only can you do hyper-realistic pieces, but you do comic-style illustrations, which is what we do here on the channel. And this ink delivered on everything I wanted, and I have very minimal complaints about this ink. I really do honestly think this is a phenomenal ink. It's really solid for beginners, and it offers a lot of things that other India inks don't. For example, out of all of the India inks I have used, this is the most alcohol resistant. It's not alcohol proof fully, but it has a very minimal bleed compared to other inks I've used, and it's really impressive. The fact that it's also matte is really unique, as every India ink I've used on this channel has a satin to glossy finish, and my only major complaint with this ink is that when you're working with a brush, the lines as it dries do shrink in on themselves, creating areas of pull and lightness where the ink doesn't fully cover. And in all honesty, as it's something pretty easy to identify, especially for experienced inkers, and easy to fix, as you just have to go over the area a couple times, or at least spread the ink more thick than normal. I'm okay with that because even some of my favorite inks, like my second favorite ink of all time, the Zix Cartoonist Sumi ink, has that same issue, and I have to do touch-up work here and there. So it's not the biggest crime that an ink can commit. In my opinion, the biggest crime an ink can commit is not having a solid black. And while Higgins is the only ink that I allow to have that exception with, and I've come to terms with it, and I've updated my opinions on that ink, this ink right here, Black Cat, gives you a very solid black that I would say rivals both the Winsor Newton India ink and the Speedball Super Black. It's just a solid black, and I would dare say it's on par with Blink, the Blackest Black ink. Seriously, this ink is incredible, and I was really impressed with everything it offered. It was waterproof, it was very alcohol resistant, it dried matte, it was a solid black, and the only complaint is just more pulling than other inks. I'm okay with that. This is a really solid ink for beginners, for pros, or for someone who just wants a really good solid matte India India ink that doesn't want to go to a Sumi ink. I was really impressed with everything, and with its affordable price range, this is a really good ink. I also wanted to go a little extra with this video, so instead of just leaving this piece with finished inks, I decided to go in and do some watercolor. I was tempted to do a little bit of alcohol marker work, but I decided not to, as I want to play more to the strengths of this ink, just like I would do with other inks I've tested on the channel, and want to do something really fun and nice for you guys. So let's go ahead and talk about that watercolor process. Like with inking, watercolor is incredibly relaxing for me. It's super fun and very enjoyable. And while the process of working light to dark can be stressful, especially for acrylic painters, for me, it's what I normally do with my alcohol markers, and I really like this. I go for a very comic book approach with my rendering, so I like to put all my shading in the inks. However, when it comes to these characters, Wrath and his siblings, I actually don't do my normal cross-hatching techniques. I specifically go with a duotone shading technique because I want the characters to pop out in a unique and different way and have a clean, sleek look to them. So all the rendering for the colors are actually done in the coloring side, which is very different from my traditional style in comic book artwork, so it's something I just wanted to highlight there. With watercolors, like I mentioned before, you work light to dark, and I had a lot of fun placing my tones and building them up, just like you would do with alcohol markers and other transparent mediums. And I really enjoyed doing the colorings. I started with Lust, then Pride, and then Wrath at the bottom. Now, I used my custom watercolor set of 52 half pans and a little bit of Windsor Red to do all the coloring. The most fun part for me was doing the background. I covered the page in water and then started mixing different shades of purples and blues and just getting all kinds of things there, a little bit of violet in the middle, and I really had a lot of fun adding that dreamy energy, just kind of watercolor look to everything. The thing about watercolor that I absolutely love that makes it so unique compared to other transparent mediums and other mediums in general is that flow. Watercolor is controlled chaos. You are going in and you're trying to control the chaotic flow of water, and using wet on wet techniques, something that I normally don't use as I'm more of a wet on dry kind of guy when it comes to doing watercolor art, really helped to give that soft painted flow and energy look to everything. Absolutely love how it came out. Now, I'm going to be honest, I probably should have done this piece on 100% cotton hot press watercolor paper. Instead, I did it on my smooth Bristol. The reason I should have done it on the watercolor paper is not only would it be more formulated and take the water better, but it also, having that 100% cotton blend, would have made the colors pop a lot more than my Bristol. With watercolor, paper really matters and can really make or break your watercolors and give you more access to better techniques, layering, and have brighter, more vivid colors. I'm an inker is my priority, so that's why I did it on Bristol. Also, because when I penciled this piece, I didn't know better, so there's that. The watercolor process was super fun, very enjoyable. I can keep talking on and on about it because it's me, guys. I'm a huge colossal art nerd. Let's go ahead and take a look at this piece in all its finished glory. I love how this piece came out. Easily top 10 favorite material. It is something that I'm really proud of, and while I did pencil this about a year and a half ago, I still think it captures the feel of what my artwork is, both then and now. You know, strong anatomy, comic book look, exaggerated features. This is what my art is. Heavy blacks and a use of mixed media, and I love it. Ironically, I originally was going to do this piece with Sumi ink and tons of alcohol just dripping on the piece and using a brush, but I feel like the watercolor and the solid black ink really make it look far better than what I could do with Sumi ink and alcohol ink, and just make it really fun and unique, and I absolutely love how this came out. I'm really glad I went that little extra bit for this piece because it really needed it and it looks awesome. And if you guys like it as much as I do, it is available on my ArtStage account for a $1 digital download, along with physical posters that you can have commissioned through the website. It comes in a variety of sizes and materials. It's a great way to help the channel out, and it's the first link in the description down below. But let's go ahead and put the piece to the side and talk about the ink itself. You all know I like this, but let's do a quick little speed run on it. Blicks Premier Ink Black Hat is phenomenal. It really impressed me and I really loved using it. I think it's a really solid ink to have in your tool belt. If you are a beginning inker, this is a really good ink to get to practice with. If you're someone who has been inking for a long time and you want a really good solid alternative, this is a really good ink to get. It's super affordable, super high quality. It offers a matte India ink that's very rare on the market, that very few inks actually have that feature, and the fact that it is more alcohol resistant than other India inks I've tried, and I've tried a lot, guys, really is impressive and shows the quality of the ink itself. Super waterproof, so you're able to go in with your normal wet media to really add life to your ink work. And the only major complaint I have is that it pulls and shrinks more than other inks I've tried while it dries. But guys, that's an easy fix. If you look at the artwork I made, I was fighting that issue during the entire process. And yeah, there's no areas of white because it's a very easy thing to fix. Either go over the area again or just go ahead and layer the ink while you're working while it's wet so that its shrinking radius is lessened as you're putting more down. And it's only apparent when you use it with a brush. When you're using it with a dip pen, that issue is not there. So overall, this ink is going to get a 9 out of 10 on my scale of 1 to 10. And while again, I do work for the company, I am being fully transparent. I am not sponsored. I have not been asked to make this video. This was my genuine first response to this ink. I now want to see Blick develop other types of inks. I want to see what they can do with acrylic ink. I want to see what they can do with watercolor inks. I want to see what they do with non-waterproof ones so you can do really cool blending. Like, I want to see them do other inks. I think this is super high quality, and let me know what you guys think of the ink in the comment section down below, along with the piece as I mentioned before. I love hearing your guys' feedback. It helps me become a better artist and content creator. Subscribe to the channel for more art and animation based content, and remember, I'm J Rod at battlebrawlerproductions. I draw with power in my own soul, and thank you all so much for watching. Take care, be safe, and keep being creative.